Elections are complicated. It's easy to look at the results of each of the United States' 58 elections and take them at face value, but this approach ignores the issues and candidates that drove people to vote in the first place. America's staunch two-party divide permeates every election, with third-party candidates only winning electoral college votes 5 times since 1900. This stems from the country's use of the first-past-the-post voting system, in which the candidate who receives the most votes wins the election. This sounds good on paper, but it can lead to what's known as the spoiler effect, in which two ideologically similar candidates split the popular vote, awarding a plurality to a third, less popular candidate. The election of 1912 stands out as the most famous example of the spoiler effect in action. Former President Theodore Roosevelt ran against incumbent Republican President William Taft as a member of the newly founded Progressive Party. This caused a split between the economically liberal and conservative wings of the Republican Party, allowing Woodrow Wilson, the little-known governor of New Jersey, to sweep the nation with the largest electoral college landslide for the Democratic Party since Franklin Pierce in 1852. Despite winning 40 states, Wilson won a mere 42% of the popular vote, the third lowest of any presidential election winner in American history. This begs the question, what if Roosevelt and Taft hadn't split the vote? Who would have won the 1912 election in a two-way race? That's the question I sought to answer. Now, I'm a computer science major, far from a history major, so I wanted to find a precise mathematical method of narrowing election races to two candidates. And what better way to do so than by writing your own program? In a nutshell, my code reads an election's results for up to 4 candidates, asks which candidates the user wants to see a two-way race between, and asks how they want to split the other candidates' votes. After reallocating these votes, the program determines which candidate won each state in order to determine the winner of the Electoral College. Without proper polling data, it's impossible to truly know how people would have voted had their candidate not run. But here are a few methods to estimate it. The first one focuses solely on each candidate's political views, taking 8 important issues of the time and using similarities and differences between each one to determine the vote split. The other method accounts for party loyalty between Taft and Roosevelt, giving each other an automatic 50, 70, and 90% of their split votes in separate scenarios, in addition to votes split by policies. Party loyalty has no effect on votes cast for Eugene Debs. I analyzed the party platforms of all 4 candidates to compare them on the following issues: tariffs, taxation, workers' rights, the minimum wage, conservation, suffrage, foreign policy, and antitrust laws. Using this information, I sorted the candidates on the political spectrum, with Debs, obviously, as the most liberal and Taft as the most conservative. Wilson's placement in between Roosevelt and Taft highlights the growing divide within the Republican Party at the time. With future historical context, we can see how this election laid the groundwork for the political realignment of the Republican and Democratic parties throughout the 20th century. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Roosevelt's views aligned closest of the 3 candidates to Debs, with Wilson in second place, giving Roosevelt all of Debs' support in a Roosevelt versus Wilson scenario, and giving Wilson all of Debs' support in a Wilson versus Taft scenario. Realistically, many of Debs' supporters likely wouldn't have voted at all had he not been on the ballot, especially in a two-way race between Wilson and Taft. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to assume the total vote count remains the same in every scenario. Purely from a policy perspective, Wilson aligns with Roosevelt more closely than Taft on most issues, with some wiggle room for things they all agree on. This gives Wilson a devastating 48-state sweep and an immense 73% of the popular vote against Taft. Is this realistic? Absolutely not. This is the early 20th century we're talking about. Party bosses and political machines reigned supreme. Giving Taft a 50% vote boost from party loyalty does little for him in the Electoral College, but it paints a more realistic landslide for Wilson, closer to the likes of Franklin Roosevelt in 1936 and Ronald Reagan in 1984. Giving Taft a 75 or 90% loyalty boost makes him seem like a more respectable candidate, but Debs' votes give Wilson an insurmountable lead. Disregarding the socialist vote by splitting it evenly does allow Taft to win, however. Roosevelt fares much better than Taft due to the Progressive Party's greater appeal to socialist voters. Combined with his performance compared to Taft in the actual election, Roosevelt manages to win 3 states without any party loyalty bonuses. The 50% loyalty bonus gives Roosevelt a much narrower defeat, while the 75% bonus hands him the presidency. Interestingly enough, the 90% loyalty bonus gives Roosevelt exactly the same states as the 75% bonus does. Taken to the extreme, Roosevelt wins a 405 electoral vote landslide had he received every vote that didn't go to Wilson. These last few maps resembles elections such as 1904, 1920, and 1924, highlighting the Democratic Party's insurmountable dominance in the South at the time, and how Wilson only won most states outside the South because of the spoiler effect. More recent elections, such as the 2000 and 2016 elections, present debatable examples of the spoiler effect. Many blame Ralph Nader of the Green Party for spoiling the results of the 2000 election in Florida. Similarly, others argue that third-party candidates Gary Johnson and Jill Stein of the Libertarian and Green parties spoiled the 2016 election by taking votes away from Hillary Clinton in key swing states. As with any election, however, there are too many variables, such as voter turnout and party switching, to definitively conclude any singular candidate's impact on it. Exit polling data from BNS suggests that Gore would have received a net 70% of Nader's voters to Bush's 30%. Sources remain conflicted on Reform Party candidate Patrick Buchanan's effects, however, as some suggest that many Gore voters accidentally voted for Buchanan due to the butterfly ballot used by some Florida counties at the time. Discounting Buchanan's votes and using the known data for Nader's votes gives Gore a slight victory of 300 electoral votes. On the other hand, these votes could have given Bush a much more commanding victory had they gone to him, even winning him the popular vote. The 2016 election saw the highest turnout for third-party candidates since 1996, but much of the data regarding their impact remains conflicting or inconclusive, especially in key swing states. A general consensus remains that a large majority of Jill Stein voters would have voted either for Clinton or not at all, and a somewhat smaller majority of Johnson voters would have done the same for Trump. Approximating these amounts produces exactly the same electoral map as the actual election, albeit with a smaller popular vote victory for Clinton. For fun, let's take these scenarios to the extreme. Clinton's extreme scenario sees her flipping back the Rust Belt in Florida, as well as winning Arizona and Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. Trump's extreme scenario gives him Minnesota, Maine, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Colorado, and Nevada. Comparing these maps helps to highlight the most competitive races in the election. The 1980 election also serves as a surprising example of the spoiler effect in action. Independent candidate John Anderson won 6% of the popular vote, and Libertarian candidate Ed Clark won 1% of the popular vote. Had all of these votes gone to Jimmy Carter, he would have won the election, while still losing the popular vote. Though nothing could have saved Walter Mondale. All this brings us to one essential question. Why do people vote third party? Is there something particularly appealing about them? Or do they just hate both major party candidates? Whatever the reason, voting third party makes a statement of dissatisfaction with the current two-party system. Studying third-party candidates' impact on elections helps us to better understand the political landscapes of the past. The successes and failures of the campaigns of Teddy Roosevelt and Robert La Follette show the rise of progressivism in American politics, culminating in Franklin Roosevelt's landslide victory amidst the Great Depression in 1932. The regional appeal of Strom Thurmond and George Wallace combined with Barry Goldwater's victories in the Deep South clarified the region's transition from the Democratic to the Republican Party. John Anderson capitalized on Republican resistance to the rise of Reaganism, and Ross Perot appealed to an electorate tired of the two-party system, campaigning on issues ignored by both parties. Although third-party candidates never win presidential elections, they leave an irrevocable impact on them, and studying these campaigns helps us better understand how we got to where we are today.